College football is back. We were treated to some games over this past weekend. Notre Dame a winner, USC a winner. Big slate coming this weekend, including that includes this team, number 5 in our countdown. The Bayou Bengals themselves, Brian Kelly's LSU Tigers, Rod Babers, LSU football. And it's safe to say that in year 1 under Brian Kelly, the LSU team exceeded expectations?
No doubt. I mean,
to make it to the Big 12 SEC championship game?
Yeah, no question. They exceed expectations. But if you're really high on Brian Kelly, and I think we both were, we knew he was going to go there with that LSU talent because he's proven he can coach. He's a ball coach.
And a program builder.
Yeah, and a program builder. And he's never had access to this type of talent before. And now you're going to add this type of talent to a guy, as you said, who's a proven program builder, and he's a damn good ball coach. And I think he just proved that LSU's going to be a force as long as Brian Kelly's there. Whether you like him or not, whether you think he's disingenuous or he's not authentic, whatever, family.
That Cajun accent wasn't genuine?
It's not, but we know one thing that is genuine, his coaching prowess and his coaching ability. He can coach now.
Well, and the fact that he beat Nick Saban last year head-to-head, that's a challenge he wanted. And as you said, with LSU's athletes, right, to be able to, Ed Orgeron was, a flash in the pan and won a national championship with a comet like Joe Burrow. But they're looking for someone who can, make them a consistent contender in the SEC.
Yep.
And this was a good hire. Remember when it was Brian Kelly, a lot of people thought it was going to be Lincoln Riley.
They wanted to make a splash. They was going to make a splash.
They were going to make a splash.
We just didn't know who it was going to be. But Brian Kelly, that was a hell of a splash. Didn't seem like it was the right fit, I think, earlier. That's why people were questioning, that's not a good fit, really. Well, I think they're proving sometimes you can force that fit a little bit.
Jaden Daniels is their quarterback. He's bulked up over 200 pounds now. He was an Arizona State transfer last year and stepped in and was just brilliant. Threw for 2,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, just 3 picks. Led the team in rushing with 885 yards as well and 11 touchdowns, Rod. He's back and bigger. He's 6'4". A lot of people think he's the best quarterback in the SEC right now.
Yeah, and they might have, some people think, the best defensive player in the SEC too, with Harold Perkins.
Yeah.
And he's just been phenomenal coming off of his freshman year. A lot of people think he's going to have a breakout year this year and end up solidifying himself as the premier defender in the SEC. So if you're talking about potentially the best quarterback in the SEC and then potentially the best defender overall in the SEC, that's the 2 foundational pieces for LSU to build upon this season.
Pillars, yeah.
Yeah, and I think LSU, there's no doubt they have tons of talent. If you go look at NFL players produced per capita state to state, Louisiana is always in the top 5. I mean, it's just it goes every year, last 5 to 8 years, Louisiana's in the top 5 or near the top 5. They have so much talent there, and there's not a lot of competition for LSU in that state. They pretty much have their pick, and then Texas can come in, and Bama will come in, and Georgia will come in and take some guys, but they usually get the premier players in the state. That's why it's a big deal that Arch Manning, Louisiana guy, left the state to come to Texas.
Yeah. Well, look, and that offense has been offensively challenged for, outside of the Joe Burrow year, quite a bit. They averaged over 450 yards last year. They had 35 points a game. For LSU and the fans, that's what's so exciting about Brian Kelly. Yes, they went 10-4. They lost in the SEC championship game to Georgia. They're not there yet. But if Brian Kelly, because the other thing Brian Kelly has been is a good developer of offense, LSU's also always been great on defense. So if you can combine the two, and develop a quarterback like this guy, Jaden Daniels, which they found in 1 year. He became their best quarterback they've had since Joe Burrow was there.
Yeah.
And so, you're going to run the football. They have great talent. Keyshawn Boutte has gone at receiver, but Malik Neighbors is an NFL receiver in the future, they believe. And the defense is anchored by Harold Perkins. And they're going to open with Florida State. This game is coming up on Monday, week from today, or is it the Sunday night? It's the Sunday night. 3rd, yeah. It's the Sunday night of Labor Day. They're going to play that game against Florida State. We had Florida State last week. They're a top 7 team in the ACC. That game is in Orlando. Remember, last year was at the Superdome. This year it's in Orlando. Then they play Grambling State, then go to Mississippi State before they play Arkansas. They do travel to Alabama after an open date in November. They wrap up the season with A&M on the 25th at home. So the schedule is navigatable, I think would be the good word, especially if they can get past Florida State, but that won't be easy in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's the SEC West. The schedule's going to be treacherous no matter which way you look at it, which way you break it down. It's going to be a tough schedule. But for LSU, to start versus Florida State we'll find out everything we need to know pretty early about this LSU squad. And one thing I love about this squad, you talked about how maybe in the passing game they got to find some more consistent weapons in the passing game, but their running game, man, they return. I want to say they're all basically all four members of their backfield from the 2022 season. And then they added some transfers or some guys who were injured, I should say, last year. They added them, and then they brought in some other recruits as well. So they basically got a loaded backfield. We talk about bringing back the quarterback, bringing back all four of their top four rushers from last year, and having like 6 scholarship backs, and they added 2 more. They got 8 scholarship running backs.
Yeah. Well,
which is rare.
That's the thing with Brian Kelly. When I say he's a program builder, like I always saw Mac Brown as a great program builder, right? Because wherever he went, Appalachian State, Tulane, North Carolina, Texas, he just knows how to build the program and meet the right people and create the foundation. And, Brian Kelly did it at Cincinnati. Actually, what he did at like Central Michigan before that, but then he did it at Cincinnati, built that program. That got him the Notre Dame job. He built that program. He left Notre Dame as the winningest coach all time at Notre Dame, which is a mouthful. And now, as you said, now he gets to recruit Louisiana talent, and he doesn't have the academic hurdles that you have at Notre Dame. And you can recruit a better player. And this I think it's why Brian Kelly shocked everybody when he took the job. He wants to be considered one of the best coaches, and he's a competitive guy. And we're better to prove that than in the rigors of the SEC. And in year one, he played for the SEC championship.
Yeah, and you brought up, that LSU has a history, just a program where they don't have prolific offenses right, throughout their history. They have great athletes, tremendous athletes, but not really a prolific offensive scheme. They had that with Joe Brady, with Joe Burrow under Ed Orgeron, and won the national title. But now with Brian Kelly, you're starting to see the transfer portal. It will be able to help LSU tremendously in terms of the quarterbacks, all right, in terms of being able to bring in top quarterbacks. They did it with Joe Burrow, did it again with Jaden Daniels, and also with Brian Kelly now. You just talked about he's an offensive-minded guy. So those days of LSU just having extremely high-level elite talent.
Hard to watch.
Yes, but exactly. But not having an offensive system that can maximize and weaponize that talent, I do think those days are done. Those days are over. You don't have to worry about that anymore, LSU fans. The concern now goes to more first-world problems with a guy like Brian Kelly. Can now you beat the best football programs in the country, the Georgias, the Bamas, of the world? That's basically your next step. And with LSU talent, you got talent is not the concern. It'll be coaching that separates.
Developing and then organizing said talent. Now, look, that big game to start the year, we know whoever comes out of that game in Orlando with the win is going to be in an advantage position. Because as far as non-conference opponents and non-conference wins, whoever wins that game, Texas, Alabama, Utah, Florida, this is probably the biggest of the non-conference head-to-head matches. Notre Dame, Ohio State will be a big one because if you can win this game for LSU, you'll be
catapulted.
And it's same for Florida State.
Yep.
Because their season is front heavy. But remember in that game, defensive tackle Mason Smith, he's one of the top players on their defense. He was a preseason All-American. He's not going to play in that game because the issue with the NCAA, right? He was signing autographs for money before NIL was allowed.
Before it was a thing,
right?
He's just like Well,
now, right now
they can't retroactively apply.
No, I guess not.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? How important do they think Mason Smith is for the top 10 showdown? He told Yahoo Sports that they actually thought about and tried to schedule a 0-week game this Saturday, just so he could serve his 1-game suspension in that game, and then be available for them against Florida State. But they couldn't find an opponent.
You thought about changing the schedule to make this guy available?
Yes. Yeah, he
Holy
said
moly.
LSU exhausted all options in an attempt to restore the eligibility of defensive tackle Mason Smith for the top 10 showdown against Florida State, including attempting to schedule a week 0 game, Brian Kelly told Yahoo Sports.
Man, that's I cannot believe that, which means they had to pay some school some ridiculous amount of money just to put them on the schedule.
Yeah.
And then just so
look,
they can
you're not
whip
playing
them.
this week. Come over here and let us kick your heads in so our guy cannot be suspended for the Florida State game.
That's a hell of a compliment for Mason Smith. Yeah, well, but honestly, that shows you that at least Florida State knows what the weakness is. It may not be a weakness, but where they're missing one of their best players, it'd be that interior defensive line.
Well, and LSU brings 8 starters back on offense, including their quarterback and all 5 offensive linemen. They sound a lot like Texas. They come back big and physical up front. Quarterback is back. weapons on the outside. We'll see, but that Florida State game looms. So they're number 5 in our countdown, which, of course, will feature a couple more SEC teams on our way to number 1.
The concern for LSU, I do believe, will be in the back end. They consider themselves to be one of the DBU programs in the country, so they'll have a lot of talent, but it's unproven in the back end for the most part. So that'll be a question whether that defensive backfield for LSU, where they can grow up and mature quick, or do they have to go through some growing pains, and going up against Florida State and their very potent offense is going to be potentially that could be a problem if those growing pains happen in that matchup.